Shivakumar from Sri Aurobindo Society. So these three entities, Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo Society are the three key entities representing three key movements of the work of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, with the ashram, the connection with the divine, with Auroville, the building of the different aspects of life, and with society, Sri Aurobindo's word really reaching out. When he was in his college, I think during his college days, um, like many of us here, he started seeking something more. And it's interesting that first he spent 3 years of his life exploring the traditional Indian spirituality, because Sri Aurobindo has said that integral yoga begins where the traditional yoga ends. And he really took that statement to his heart and wholeheartedly first explored traditional spirituality and then began work in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, and he's been doing these several All India youth camps, which connects for him India's spirituality and Sri Aurobindo's work. So with that, I welcome Shiva.
After what Anu has shared, I would like to continue because it's in a certain sense a continuity of the vision which is getting unfolded. And this is the vision which was given to Sri Aurobindo Society when it was founded by the mother in 1960. It is to spread the message of Sri Aurobindo and also help in the realization of a spiritualized society. But there is a lot of underground or behind the scenes work that needs to happen before this type of a work of reaching out could happen, because before reaching out can happen, we need to be a little grounded wherever we are. So I will take you through a brief look into what this internal work which is necessary before we enter into the space of collective work. But in a certain sense, when Sri Aurobindo was working for India's freedom, just the years before 1910, when he asked for complete independence, Purna Swaraj, he was obviously not asking only for political freedom, but he was asking for much more. In a certain sense, recovery of something which was essential to India, which was somehow lost. So we will begin by taking a look at how Sri Aurobindo views this work which he began from the days of his independence struggle. So when he wanted to spell out the essential work at hand, this is how he says very beautifully. One of the first thing he says, this is the most essential, the first step without which the next steps would be very difficult to take, is the recovery of old spiritual knowledge and experience. Interesting, he puts knowledge and experience because sometimes we relate knowledge to books and then bookish knowledge. So he quickly brings in the word experience. In all its splendor, depth, and fullness is its first, most essential work. So in a certain sense, that spiritual foundation is to be recovered not only as a knowledge of the mind, but as an experience of one's person. And once we have entered into that field, we can get ready for the next one, because once we have recovered the foundation, the next work is to build buildings on the firm, solid foundation. And therefore, once we have recovered the knowledge of the spirits, the next step is to allow it to flow through various channels of work that is available. So he says the flowing of this spirituality into new forms of philosophy, literature, art, science, critical knowledge is the second. And this is not an exhaustive list, but he's giving a representative fields. But once this begins to happen, we are likely to encounter enormous amount of problems both internal and external. In a certain sense, the story of Sri Aurobindo Society and the Ashram and the Auroville and several other organizations working towards this goal are a standing testimony of the struggle that we have gone in order to work out this reaching out. And what is its nature? An original dealing with modern problems, because for this time and this age, we all belong to this modern age. The type of problems that we face is not exactly the same as what was there a long time back. And therefore, there are some problems which are specific to our time and our age, and there are some problems which are fundamental to human nature too. Original dealing with modern problems in the light of the Indian spirit and the endeavor to formulate a greater synthesis of a spiritualist society is the third and most difficult. And all the future work that we are looking ahead, its success on these three lines will be the measure of its help to the future of humanity. In a certain sense, he has given a kind of a blueprint, recovering the spiritual knowledge by experience, allowing it to flow through different channels or fields, and in that process, well, we are passing from a sphere of individuality to the collectivity, to the nation, and to the entire humanity. All the problems that we are likely to encounter, how do we work out these problems and find solutions? So, in this approach, once we begin to work, and once we start reading Sri Aurobindo, we will find that there are three types of work that needs to be done in order to enter into the collective space of work. One of the first things, it's interesting, is the work that has to be done at the individual level. It's extremely difficult to directly jump into a work because we love the work. The concept of Auroville, what it stands for, the concept of society at the ashram, they all sound beautiful, but if we jump in directly into it, we are jumping into perhaps an ocean with strong currents without teaching ourselves how to swim. And therefore, in a certain sense, we have to learn to swim. And before we can enter into the ocean of strong currents, one of the first things at an individual level is to take refuge in a higher power, in the divine, which will help us to even swim in the ocean. And in a certain sense, in Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's work, one of the first physical manifestation in their work was the ashram. Interestingly, Sri Aurobindo, who was so modern, even in his spirituality, chose to give a traditional name ashram to that institute which they set up first. And only thing, they have to explain, this is not an ashram of a traditional nature where you take sannyas, but this is an ashram which embraces the world. How does it do it? What is the first step? When we look into the working of the ashram, especially when Sri Aurobindo and the mother were in their body, for anything and everything, the ashramites used to ask permission to the mother. It's a funny instance when a foreigner came to ashram. So he wanted to take somebody out to a local restaurant just for a cup of tea. So he said, come out, let's have a cup of tea. And the person said, let me go and check up with the mother, take her permission and come. I said, this is a cup of tea, you have to take permission from the mother. He goes to another person, why don't we just take a look at the city? You know, I come to the ashram, I want to go and see the city. Can you show me around the city? He says, I will have to take the permission of the mother. If she says, yes, I will come and then take you. And once he started moving around for everything and anything, the only answer he was getting, let me check up with the mother. And finally he got frustrated, went straight up to the mother and shot a question at her. Mother, what is happening here? Nobody is willing to do anything without asking you first. Is it not a dictatorship? And then, you know, the answer that she gave, does anybody here know? So the question was, are you a dictator? And the mother said, yes. And then she said, benevolent dictator. In a certain sense, we are all at the mercy of so many desires and impulses. We are already slaves. We are already being under dictatorship. Now it is just transferring to another power of mother who is the benevolent dictator. But later she said, it is, you will have to refer to the mother inside and not just the mother outside. So in those days, when everybody will approach the mother, even for something simple. Mother, should I have a little more bindi during my lunch? Or do you think somebody will say that I'm drinking only half a cup of milk? I think I should have full tumbler of milk. What do you say about it? I seek your permission. For anything and everything, it was referred to the mother. And if we just flip it around, one of the first foundation is all the things that we are habituated to do, we will have to refer to the mother or to the divine who is on the inside. Now once we begin to see, we are in a space of taking refuge with a greater power which has more knowledge, more wisdom and more understanding of us. And in the true sense of the word, ashram is taking refuge in what? This is it, in the divinity within. And then what we look at ashram becomes just a physical symbol of an inner process that has to happen with everybody, not only the people who are labeled as ashramites. Now, once this first shift begins to happen, when we begin to refer our thoughts, our emotions, our desires, impulses, and the physical things that move us to referring it to the inner power, one of the first shift that happens is what Mother has called psychicization. The inner divine begins to have a kind of an influence over our everyday dealing with, which becomes one of the essential qualities before we can jump into the collective work. Because without having done this work, if we jump into it, we are under the dictatorship of our lower nature, not under the dictatorship of the divine within. And once we enter into it, we enter into a second stage, collective level. Now, this is like I'm feeling myself part of something greater, a greater organization, an ashram, an Auroville, or Sri Aurobindo Society. And here is a tongue-in-cheek remark by the mother when somebody came and said that, well, we are a collectivity, mother, we are doing so many things. And then she quietly gives the remark, first, I could tell you that to do a collective yoga, there has to be a collectivity. What she means is interesting. It's not the name that makes us into a collectivity, but it is something more. And if you look into it, I still remember 20 years back, I came here and then I became part of Sri Aurobindo Society and I was working into. I found, earlier I thought that I had read a little bit of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and I was very sure that everybody must be following it. And then the more I have read, the more I will be falling in line with them. But one of the very first, in the very first year itself, I understood that there is not one way of looking at anything. There are so many ways of looking at things. Whatever I wanted to do, there is a 10 other people who are coming with the view why it should not be done, why it cannot be done, and why it is one of the worst idea, and why their idea is much better, and a lot of other things are there. And I was a little dumbfounded, what is happening? And I'm not able to, in a certain sense, bring out my ideas and give it a shape, a form. And but how do I exist with these people with whom I don't seem to be having any harmony? Because the moment I say something, 100 oppositions come. And one of the first thing I learned is we need to coexist. It is not that everybody has to agree with me, nor that I have to agree with everybody, but a fundamental goodwill has to be put into practice. And when we look at things practically, how does it manifest? So it is almost telling the other person, see, I cannot feel the same way that you feel because you are a different person, I'm a different person. Your thinking is different and your way of feeling is different. I have a different way of feeling. So I will not be able to agree completely with what you want to do. But it's your idea. If you want to put it into practice, I am ready to support you. And in the process, when I get an idea, you see the implication. When I get an idea, I want to do something, and please don't put up questions and try to pull me down. Just come and say that it's your idea, and there is something within you where the mother is working out. I'm going to support you in executing your plan the way in which you would like to. I have all goodwill for you. And one of the first things we need is the capacity to coexist with a group of people who are not completely thinking the same thing, feeling the same thing, and doing the same thing, and a tremendous amount of goodwill. Going out of the way to offer oneself, one's capacities, and putting it at the disposal of something what one feels as mother is working through everybody, and as long as I feel it, I will be supporting to you. Once the second phase is there, the third one is we are entering into a way of collective working where we will find that one approach is not sufficient for any work that we have taken up, because there are some people who will always come and say that we need to plan everything, and first we'll have to check out what the budget allocated is, what is the impact, what is the outcome, is it income generating, and then these are the first step, these are the second step, this is how the follow-up. There are one type of people who always want to have an approach of organized, systematic, planned way of working. And when for any project, when we get into that space, the moment something like this comes, immediately there is a counter proposal. But this way of working is so restricting to me. Why do we have to work out everything? It's too rigid. It doesn't allow me to be spontaneous. I am a spontaneous person. Well, if I want to get up and sing a song, I should have the freedom to do it, not the mental, rigid, structured, planned way of doing everything. There has to be a warmth, there has to be a spontaneity. Already, if we look a little deeper into it, there is a third type of people also who are very much grounded in channelizing energies. They don't want to talk too much about things. They don't want to be spontaneous outbursts through our activities. They just want to do something, and for that they just need a plan. They are executors. This is it. Tell me my role. What am I supposed to do? I will do it to the best. Now, in any work, if you look at it, these are the three fundamental components which go into it. And if we can build and accept and allow these components to coexist, in a certain sense, already we have taken the first step towards being a collectivity. Here is a group of people who have learned to coexist. And only thing, it has to be developed into a harmonious existence. Right now, harmony is little out of reach. But we will start with the goodwill, and then we will enter into the third stage, which is once we have the feel of a collectivity, now we have to get into an action, and that is where each one's temperament, each one's preference, as well as the collectivity's temperament and preference comes into play. We have to choose a field of action. And choosing a field of action, which is the need of the hour, which is contemporary, which the entire humanity is struggling with, becomes an excellent way of channelizing all our energies. And then we recall what Sri Aurobindo has said in the first line. First thing, recover the spiritual knowledge, recover the essential knowledge in that particular field before we can step into the action field. So arriving at the essential knowledge of that particular field, be it education, management, village development, art, music, dance, drama, literature, whatever it is there, we need to recover the essential knowledge of that field. And we are fortunate that it's available in 40 volumes of Sri Aurobindo and in 17 volumes of the Mother. We just have to know how to extract that essential knowledge that is available to them. And once it is there, it's a churning process. How do I synthesize that knowledge with the knowledge which is already going to be bombarding into me? The moment I enter into educational field, it's not that I enter only with Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's idea of integral education, because 100 ideas are already challenging this. Now there is something good also. I have to extract it, synthesize it, and therefore with a synthesis I can launch myself into work more effectively. And finally, the field of work is not external to us, it has to be an extension of what we do with ourselves. Have I made my life into a life of unending education? Then that helps me to enter into the field and say that in the real sense of the word, education cannot stop with the school, it has to be an unending education. If I have done it with myself to a certain extent, what I do in the field is a natural extension of what I have done with myself. It is one more step, a higher grade. Well, once again, I go back to what is already available in Sri Aurobindo the Mother's literature. Mother gives the clue by studying carefully what Sri Aurobindo has said on all subjects. One can easily reach a complete knowledge, and we have to remind ourselves it's not an external mentalized knowledge, because Sri Aurobindo's words put us in touch with the source of knowledge from where we can draw out whatever knowledge that we need. It's not already expressed and given in those 47 volumes, but it is something that helps us to put us in touch with the source of knowledge. In that sense, any subject, we take up one word, one sentence of Sri Aurobindo, we can put ourselves in touch with the source of knowledge and then make the knowledge flow through us. Now, this is the background before we enter into the field of action which Sri Aurobindo Society has chosen. So I'm going to give a very quick review of that. When Mother started an organization which is also part of the reaching out, see, when she started Sri Aurobindo Ashram, it was an exclusive community. In a certain sense, none of the ashramites were encouraged to be in touch with the people of outside because something fundamental needs to be established. But after 50 years of Sri Aurobindo's coming here in 1960, the first anniversary of the supramental year, Mother said that the supramind has come here, established. Now we can reach out in a very effective way. And then she started reaching out And the study of how she took forward Sri Aurobindo Society in its initial stages is a remarkable study of how an organized work is taken care of by the mother herself. The first thing that she did is she gave a name, Sri Aurobindo Society, directly taking Sri Aurobindo's name. And one of the first things that she came out with, well, if it is to be an organized movement into the world, we need a motto. And then she immediately came up with the motto, to know is good, that there is a way of transforming ourselves. Well, the next step is to live is better. And that is the battlefield all of us are right now in. We have read something of Sri Aurobindo, we know something of what we are meant to do, but living it out in a collective environment is the battleground that all of us are going through. And as we keep applying Sri Aurobindo the Mother's guidelines, at some point we'll find that things are easing up. Initially, it's a battlefield, everywhere opposition, hardly any cooperation. Well, the words like unity and synthesis seem out of reach, but later you will find that something is falling at ease. There is something on the inside which begins to get stabilized. And once we hold on to that space, what happens on the outer field is an outflow of that stability which got inside very much instilled. So that is the stage to be. Well, that is perfect. And then mother said, we have a motto now. What more do we need? Well, let's go for a symbol. She took up Sri Aurobindo's symbol and enclosed it in a diamond place and said, what is the significance of diamond? Well, Sri Aurobindo said, it is the mother's force at its intensest. Well, we need that power before we can enter into the field of work. And then this was the second thing that she created. After motto, a symbol was given. And once the symbol was given, next she said, well, we will need something more. We need to reach out to people. So she said, let's have an All India level conference. She called a lot of people at the All India level, anybody who would like to work for this new vision. There is one spelling mistake which you can ignore. So the first conference, which happened in 1961 in Pondicherry, under mother's guidance, where the topics were chosen by the mother, the invitees were chosen by the mother, the content of the conference was chosen by the mother. And once the All India conference happened first, next thing she said, all the other people in all over small states of India, why don't they organize a similar one? And she gave out the impulse, and then smaller level conference started happening at the state level. One of the first that happened is an All Assam conference that happened in Digboy. So the national, and then a little consolidation, and the next obvious step, she said, let's go for an international conference. So in 64, the first world conference was organized, and 7 years afterwards, she said, well, we want to reach out and be in touch with the people little more regularly. She created a magazine, named it All India Magazine, and put out one guideline. This will carry only Sri Aurobindo the Mother's words, no other articles. So once the magazine was established, next she wanted to reach out to the children. So she sanctioned one children's magazine, Puroda, and then a little more, not just India, but international level. She created another magazine and named it as The Next Future. Well, after that, how systematically and beautifully, in an organized way, the application of the vision into concrete reality happens. 1968, the first major project, Auroville, happened. Anu has shared quite a lot of it. 71, the foundation of Matru Mandir. And side by side, a lot of centers and branches all over India were being opened up. They will send the request to the mother. Mother will ask for the photograph of the person, look at it, concentrate, sanction, and centers and branches started coming up all over. And then came the application into chosen fields, what we now call in the corporate language as vertical. And the mother, one of the first two verticals of Sri Aurobindo Society which mother created was Orofilms, because she wanted to reach out and share the message of Sri Aurobindo the Mother in beautiful visual form. And she already knew that audio visuals were taking over our engagement. And therefore, it is through this that she came out with, later came out with 3 documentaries about ashram, about education, and also about Sri Aurobindo's life. One of the earliest one. Now we have so many available, even on YouTube, we will get a very brief glimpse of some of the verticals as Sri Aurobindo Society. So these are some of the fields of activity: education, rural development, sustainable development, health, leadership management, Indian culture. Palliative care is a specialized field in medicine where people with terminal illnesses are taken care of. So we have a team in Puducherry which goes for door-to-door canvassing, trying to find out people who have been diagnosed with terminal illnesses and help the community to take care of those people. Children with special needs, we are working with Satya's School for Special Children in Pondicherry itself. Youth and women, I'm directly involved with the work in youth, and also I'm directly involved with my work in education. And also we have a couple of outlets in Pondicherry itself through which business also happens. Well, all this is based on research and training. Our medium of reaching out to people is workshop, seminar, conference, exhibition, little bit of internship. We have been publishing books, audio visuals, magazines, and e-journals. I will take up one vertical and then tell you how the work happened, which will give you a sample, an idea of the difficulty. So I will take up our work in rural development. So in 2005, almost 15 years back, one lady who had just lost her husband came to us and said, I have really lost my husband who was a central point of my life. Now he is not there anymore. I want to take up something which will give meaning to my life. So until that time, the organization was not doing much in Pondicherry. It was more like reaching out means reaching out to places beyond Pondicherry. And that point, just a thought, an idea came among a few of us. Why don't we do something for the people of Pondicherry in and around that area? So we looked around. There are so many villages. Some are remote, some with the facility. Most of it have people who are drunks. And one of their main occupation is make their wives work, get the money out of them, go for drinks and start playing cards. This was the general condition of many of the villages in and around surrounding Puducherry. So we said, well, we have to reach out because they too are part, 70% of India is still in rural areas. So we told that person, why don't you see whether you feel like doing something? So as a single lady, she took a bus and went to a village which is about 10 kilometers away from the city, where morning one bus goes and then the bus comes back in the evening. There was only one bus for going and then coming. She went there catching that bus, landed in that village, and as she entered into the village, villages are closed to community. They're not open to new people coming. So she was nicely ignored by everybody, hardly anybody reached out to her. And she also did not know who is the main person, some of the important people whom she has to reach out to. So she asked a few people, she did not get any proper reply. Finally, she went to a tree shade and then just sat under the tree shade, exhausted and almost ready to give up. But then something inside her said not to give up so soon. So the next time also she got a bus, came. The whole day she was sitting under the tree shade. And the third day also she came, and the third day something nice happened. Some of the children who are playing in that area, they were noticing who is this Akka who comes and then sits under the tree. So the children started reaching out to her, and then she started telling some stories with them. She started interacting with them. She introduced some nice habits which they can go. Something simple as how before eating food we have to wash our hands. And when the children went back, and when their mother told them, come eat quickly, I have so much work. She said, no, 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 no. My Akka said, before eating, I have to wash my hands. So the mothers were surprised. Who is this Akka who is introducing such nice habits? And the curiosity, just because of the curiosity, the mothers of the children, the next day, they came to meet this lady. Kalama was her name. And when these women started coming to her, she said, please sit down because now that you want to know why I am here, I want to share something with you because when I came here, I felt that I too belonged to this place. And this is our house and it is our responsibility to take care of our house. Government may be doing 100 things, may or may not be doing it properly, but why do we have to wait for the government to do anything? Why don't we take up something and then do something beautifully? And with their help, she started slowly cleaning up the streets, desilting the pond, creating hygienic places, and then toilets. A lot of things started getting added. But the most beautiful part is after 1 month, when she entered, she encounters the village rowdy. You know, the Gunda? There's a Gunda rowdy in every village. He was standing right before she entered into the village. And he said, hold on, Kalama, you stand right there. I see that you are becoming popular with the village. I know what you people do. You come here and then do something, take nice photographs, publish it, and you get lakhs and lakhs of rupees. You spend 1,000 rupees here, you get lakhs. I don't want you to enter into this village at all. Now, he almost said that don't come here at all, just go back. And Kalama has narrated this story personally to me also. And I immediately asked her, so what did you do? You can't defy a village Gunda. And Kalama said, I just closed my eyes, prayed to the mother. And as I was praying, one idea came. I opened my mouth and told him, give me 1 month's time. In that 1 month time, whatever I do, feel free to interfere, observe, monitor, and I give you full freedom to be part of the work. And after 1 month, well, if you are convinced that I'm doing something good for your village, you allow me to work. Otherwise, you just say one word, get out, and I will get out, I won't come back. So for 1 month, this Gunda was secretly observing her and interviewing the people who were working with her. And after 1 month, again, when Kalama comes, the Gunda is again standing right at the entrance. And Kalama did not know what to expect. So when she gets down, the Gunda tells her that Kalama, I see that you are a little different from the other corporate people who are coming. And I'm impressed and I want to be with you, part of your team, and I'm going to be there wherever you go. Now, you might think that this is a wonderful thing, but it is not. Because if anybody goes to that village, some of the houses, with a Gunda with you, they will immediately shut the doors and say that, sorry, we are not with you anymore. Even the little bit of opening that has happened is going to end permanently. Now, Kalama thought, if she says yes, it's a problem. If she says no, you cannot defy a Gunda. He is going to ask you to get out. And she once again prayed to the mother. Now, this is one thing that all of us will have to. Prayer, as Sri Aurobindo said, it's not like a machine. You put in a prayer and then get the right answer, because Kalama shared with me, I prayed and nothing came to my mind. I was blank. And then with that blankness, she opened the eyes, and fortunately, the Gunda started speaking to her. He said, Kalama, I know what you are thinking. You're thinking that I could be a problem if I am with you. And then he says, you give me 1 month's time. Allow me to work with you, and if my Gundaism, my Dadagiri comes out in any way, after 1 month, you tell me that I am not supposed to be part of your work. I will step back and give all my support and my blessings. Now, that particular boy was just hardly 23 years old. He later became one of our excellent and active and most dynamic workers. He became our youth coordinator in that village. And the next year, when he had his birthday, 24th year, until that time, he will send his friends for a money collection with all the villagers. They will get the money, and the birthday bash party will be to get booze and then drinks and then spend the night. But for his 24th birthday, he said, for my village, I'm getting 24 saplings. I'm going to plant it because this is my village. I can feel it now. And this, in a certain sense, gives us an idea, something of the application of what we hold to be. A lot of inner work needs to be done. We have to learn to refer constantly all our habitual thoughts and emotions and workings with the divine insight. And gradually, we have to allow it to flow outside in our collectivity where we learn to coexist. And later will come the cooperation, and then the harmony will follow. So this is a kind of a map for our way of working, and I will pause here. Just a little sharing of my journey in the last 20 years. Thank you.